Chapter 1. The Silent Goodbye. The sun dipped below the horizon, casting the world in hues of amber and crimson as Anna sat on the old wooden bench by the lake, watching the waves gently lap at the shore. The cool breeze ruffled her hair, but she hardly noticed. Her mind was a million miles away, lost in the storm of emotions that had been raging inside her for weeks. The wind seemed to whisper secrets she wasn't ready to hear, and the scent of the lake, familiar and comforting, did nothing to ease the ache in her chest. She hadn't expected to feel this way. She had always prided herself on being strong, on being able to move forward no matter the hardship. But this was different. Her fingers grazed the edge of the bench as she clutched the small piece of paper in her hand. A letter from him. She had read it over and over again, as if somehow the words might change, as if somehow he might change his mind. Anna had known it was coming. She had felt the distance between them growing for months. A slow, subtle shift that had made her question everything she thought she knew about their relationship. But when the letter arrived, when the final words left him a world away, she couldn't ignore the deep, hollow ache that settled inside her. "I'm sorry, Anna, but I think it's time we let go. There's no way for us to go back to what we once had." She swallowed hard, staring at the lake as though it could offer some kind of solace. The letter was simple, direct. No long explanations. No promises of returning. Just finality. And yet, it was the absence of words, the silence that hurt the most. The silence of a love that had once been so loud. She thought back to the beginning. They had met in college. Two strangers thrown together by fate. She had never believed in love at first sight, but that day, when he had smiled at her across the crowded room, something shifted. He was different from everyone else. Quiet, reserved, but there was an intensity in his eyes that drew her in. Their relationship had been a whirlwind. They spent nights talking until the sun rose, their conversations filled with everything and nothing at once. The kind of love that made you believe in fairy tales, in forever. But somewhere along the way, things had changed. They had drifted apart slowly at first, the cracks too small to notice, but too large to ignore. The late-night conversations turned into hurried text messages. The weekends spent together became less frequent. And eventually, she found herself sitting by the lake with a letter in her hand, wondering what went wrong. She had tried. She had tried everything to salvage it. More dates, more conversations, more affection, but nothing had worked. It was as if the spark they once shared had fizzled out, and now there was nothing left to hold on to. She had no answers, just questions that haunted her every waking moment. Her phone buzzed in her pocket, pulling her from her thoughts. She pulled it out, seeing his name flash across the screen. Her heart skipped a beat. She hadn't heard from him in days. Maybe, just maybe, he had changed his mind. Her fingers hovered over the screen, the tension building in her chest. Should she answer? Should she let the silence between them stretch a little longer? Or should she break it, just this once, to hear his voice? Maybe, just maybe, there was hope left. She couldn't let go of the idea of them, not yet. But then the screen went dark. The call ended. No voicemail. No text. Nothing. She stared at the phone, her heart sinking as the weight of his absence pressed down on her. It was over. He had already made his choice. Anna let out a shaky breath, blinking back the tears that threatened to spill. The air around her felt colder now, the lake's waves crashing harder against the shore. She stood up, her legs unsteady beneath her. The world felt wrong, like it was slipping out of focus. And in that moment, Anna realized that the hardest part of losing someone wasn't the goodbye. It was the silence after. The silence that came after the words had been said. The silence that reminded her, in no uncertain terms, that love was gone. Chapter 2. The Weight of Memory. The days that followed were a blur. Anna found herself moving through the motions of life without truly living. Work became a dull repetition. Conversations with friends felt distant and forced, and even the simple task of making coffee in the morning seemed like a chore. She wandered through her apartment as if it were a foreign place, surrounded by things that no longer felt like home. The memories haunted her. Moments of laughter, of joy, of tenderness. each one like a ghost that refused to be banished. They were everywhere. In the kitchen where they had once cooked dinner together, in the living room where they had shared their first kiss, and most of all, in the bedroom where they had whispered promises of forever to one another. The echo of those memories filled the space around her, and she couldn't escape it, no matter how hard she tried. The hardest part was the silence. It had been a week since he left her the letter, and in that time, she hadn't heard a word from him. No phone call, no text, no attempt to explain himself. She had convinced herself that he would reach out, that he would come back to her and they would fix it. But now, as the days passed in a slow crawl, it became clear that he wasn't coming back. And with every passing moment, the hole inside her deepened. She had never expected this. A part of her always believed that love was something you could fix, something that could be saved if you were willing to fight for it. But now, with every empty moment, every unanswered call, she realized that maybe love wasn't enough to keep two people together. It was a Saturday when she decided to take a walk, hoping the fresh air might clear her mind. The city streets were busy with people going about their weekend routines, but Anna felt like an outsider, like she was watching life from a distance. The energy around her was constant, but she was drowning in her own thoughts, the weight of loss pressing on her chest like a heavy stone. She walked without any real destination in mind, her feet carrying her down familiar streets she had once strolled with him. The parks, the coffee shops, the alleyways where they had discovered hidden gems. Each corner seemed to hold a memory, each building seemed to whisper his name. The city that had once felt like a shared adventure now felt empty, hollow. Anna's mind kept returning to the letter. She had read it over and over, dissecting every word, trying to make sense of the suddenness of it all. There had been no warning signs, no big fight, no dramatic argument, just an abrupt end. She couldn't understand it. How could he love her one moment and walk away the next? What had happened to them? Where had they gone wrong? As her thoughts spiraled, Anna found herself standing at the edge of the lake again. The same lake where they had spent countless afternoons together, their hands intertwined, their laughter echoing across the water. She had been here so many times with him, on lazy summer days, watching the sunset, talking about their future. The lake had always been their place, a symbol of the love they had shared. But now, standing there alone, it felt like a cruel reminder of everything she had lost. She sat on the same bench where she had sat just days earlier, the spot where she had read his letter. She wrapped her arms around herself, the cold wind cutting through her jacket. For the first time in days, her tears began to fall, the silent sorrow spilling over as she let herself grieve for what she had lost. There was no one to console her, no one to hold her, no one to tell her it would be okay. She was alone in this, completely alone. Her phone buzzed in her pocket, interrupting the quiet solitude of the moment. Anna wiped her eyes quickly, trying to compose herself before checking the message. It was from her best friend, Olivia. "Hey, are you okay? I've been worried about you. Let's meet up for coffee tomorrow. I miss you." Anna stared at the message, her heart aching at the simple gesture of concern. She hadn't told anyone about the letter, about the end of her relationship. She had kept everything bottled up inside, afraid of what others would think, afraid of the pity in their eyes. But Olivia had always been her rock, the one person who knew her better than anyone else. "I'm fine. Just needed some time to think. Coffee sounds good." She didn't know what she would tell Olivia, or if she was ready to talk about it all. But the thought of seeing her friend gave Anna a flicker of hope, a tiny glimmer of light in the darkness that had consumed her. As the sun began to set, casting long shadows across the water, Anna felt a shift inside her. The world around her was still moving, still turning, even though her life felt frozen. She didn't know how to move on from the pain, but maybe, just maybe, taking small steps was a start. And so, as the lake grew quiet and the city lights began to twinkle in the distance, Anna stood up, brushing off the weight of the past few days. She wasn't sure what the future held, but for the first time, she felt a small sense of determination. She would keep going, keep moving forward, even if it meant doing it alone. The silence between her and him had stretched too long. It was time to find her own voice again. Chapter 3. A Conversation with the Past. The following day, Anna met Olivia at the small cafe downtown. It was the kind of place they used to frequent every weekend. Hidden behind a row of old bookshops, with a smell of freshly brewed coffee hanging in the air, and soft jazz music playing in the background. The cozy interior, with mismatched chairs and warm lighting, felt like a safe haven, a reminder of better days when the world felt simpler. As Anna walked inside, she spotted Olivia sitting by the window, her brown hair pulled back into a loose ponytail, her eyes scanning a book as always. The sight of her friend's familiar face brought a wave of comfort, but also an undeniable weight. Olivia was the kind of person who could always tell when something was wrong. Anna had never been able to hide much from her, not since they were roommates in college. Olivia looked up as soon as Anna approached, her expression softening with concern. She set the book aside, her brow furrowing slightly. "Hey, you're looking a little better today," she said, standing up to hug Anna. Anna hugged her back tightly, allowing herself to lean on her friend for a moment. She hadn't realized how much she needed this, how much she needed someone who would just be there without asking too many questions. The embrace felt grounding, as though Olivia's presence could momentarily erase the numbness that had been gripping her heart. "Thanks for meeting me," Anna said softly, pulling away from the hug and taking a seat across from her. She tried to smile, but it felt strained. Olivia studied her for a moment, her eyes sharp with the kind of affection only a best friend could give. "You don't have to pretend, you know. I can see it in your eyes. Something's happened." Anna hesitated, her fingers playing with the napkin on the table. She had been avoiding talking about it, but she knew it was time. She couldn't keep pretending everything was fine. Not with Olivia. He left me," Anna said, her voice barely above a whisper, the words hanging in the air like a stone. Olivia's eyes widened, and she reached across the table, taking Anna's hand in hers. "Oh, Anna," she said, her voice filled with sympathy. "I'm so sorry." Anna's throat tightened as she blinked back fresh tears. She hadn't expected to break down so quickly, but the floodgates opened, and she couldn't hold back the emotions any longer. The sadness, the frustration, the confusion, all of it poured out in a rush. "How could he do this?" Anna asked, her voice trembling. We were everything to each other. And now he's gone. No explanation. Just a letter." She wiped her eyes, her chest aching with the weight of the words. "I keep thinking I missed something that I should have known. But there were no signs, Liv. None." Olivia squeezed her hand, her expression full of compassion. "It's not your fault, Anna. Sometimes people change, and sometimes they don't know how to tell us. It doesn't mean you did anything wrong." Anna took a deep breath, trying to steady herself. She looked out the window, where the street was busy with people going about their lives, their laughter and conversations almost mocking her pain. "I don't understand. We used to talk about everything. The future, our dreams. We were supposed to grow old together." Her voice wavered as she continued. "I never imagined he would just walk away. I feel like a part of me has been torn out." Olivia's hand remained steady in hers, and she spoke with a kind of gentleness that only a true friend could offer. "Sometimes love isn't enough. You know that. You can be madly in love with someone, but it doesn't guarantee forever. People change, grow apart, and sometimes they don't know how to navigate those changes with the person they once thought they were meant to be with." "But I don't think he's even trying," Anna said bitterly. "I haven't heard from him. No phone calls, no texts. I sent him a message, but he never replied. It's like he just disappeared from my life." Anna's voice cracked as she added, "And I don't know if I can handle it, Liv." The silence. "It's like he never cared." Olivia's gaze softened with understanding, her eyes reflecting a depth of empathy. "The silence is the hardest part. It's like being stuck in limbo, not knowing what happened or why things changed. It's painful. But Anna, you can't control his choices. You can only control how you move forward from here. You deserve someone who will choose you, not someone who disappears without a word." Anna nodded slowly, feeling the truth of Olivia's words sink in. She had been clinging to the hope that Jason would come back, that they would find their way back to each other. But the more she thought about it, the more she realized that she couldn't keep waiting for someone who wasn't willing to fight for her. She had to start fighting for herself. Olivia continued. You're stronger than you think, you know. You have so much to offer the world. You will heal, Anna. It just takes time. Anna exhaled, her heart still heavy but lighter than before. For the first time in days, she felt a sense of clarity. She didn't know what the future held, but she was beginning to understand that healing wasn't a linear process. It wasn't about getting over him immediately. It was about learning to live again, to find joy in the little things, and to trust that she would emerge from the pain, stronger than she had been before. Thank you, Anna whispered, looking at Olivia with gratitude. I needed to hear that. Olivia smiled warmly, squeezing her hand once more. Anytime, Anna. I'm here for you always. As they sat together, the conversation turned to lighter topics, and for the first time in what felt like forever, Anna laughed. The world didn't seem as dark anymore. There was still pain, of course, but she realized that she didn't have to carry it alone. When the coffee cups were empty and the sun had begun to dip lower in the sky, Anna stood up, feeling a bit more grounded than when she had walked in. I think I'll take a walk, she said, more to herself than to Olivia. I need to clear my mind. Olivia stood up as well, pulling Anna into a tight hug. You'll be okay, I promise. With a final wave, Anna left the cafe and stepped out into the cool evening air. The city was still buzzing with life, but this time she didn't feel so out of place. She was moving forward one small step at a time. Chapter 4. The unexpected encounter. The walk was supposed to help her clear her mind, but instead, Anna found herself wandering aimlessly through the city streets. The sun was beginning to set, casting a soft orange glow over the buildings, and the cool air of the evening seemed to settle on her skin like a gentle reminder that time was still passing. She meandered without any real direction, her feet carrying her through the neighborhood she used to know so well, the familiar sights now tinted with a quiet sadness. The coffee shop was a few blocks away, but as she walked, she found herself passing by old places she had once visited with Jason. A small park bench they used to sit on during long afternoons. A bookstore where they had spent hours browsing through pages, their fingers brushing over the same books. The path they had taken together on their late-night walks, when the world seemed to belong only to them. Each step felt heavier, the weight of memories dragging her down, and she tried to push the thoughts away. She wasn't supposed to be here, reliving the past. She needed to move forward to take control of her life again. But how could she forget all the things they had shared? How could she just move on from someone who had been her whole world for so long? Lost in her thoughts, she rounded a corner and almost collided with a man coming out of a small cafe. She stepped back quickly, her hand going to her chest in surprise. I'm sorry, she said quickly, her voice strained. The man, looking just as surprised, raised his hands in apology. No, I wasn't looking where I was going. I didn't mean to startle you. Anna took a deep breath, trying to calm her racing heart. She glanced up at him, her eyes meeting his for a brief moment. He was tall, with dark hair and sharp features that looked vaguely familiar. He was dressed in a casual jacket and jeans, but there was something about the way he carried himself that exuded an air of confidence and quiet charm. He had a warmth in his smile that immediately put her at ease, even though her heart was still heavy with the weight of everything she had just been through. I'm really sorry, she said again, this time offering a small smile. I wasn't paying attention. It's been a weird day. The man raised an eyebrow, his smile widening. I can tell. But hey, you're not alone. The world does tend to throw a lot at us, doesn't it? Anna couldn't help but chuckle a little at his response. There was something soothing about the way he spoke, like he understood more than he let on. Yeah, it sure does, she replied. It's just one of those days where nothing feels quite right. The man nodded, his expression turning more thoughtful. You know, he said, sometimes the best way to get through those days is to talk to a stranger. Maybe it's the anonymity, or maybe it's just the fact that we don't have to worry about anything. But it can help. Anna blinked, surprised by the sincerity in his voice. She glanced at him again, noting that he seemed completely at ease, as though he had dealt with life's ups and downs with a calm grace. I don't know. It feels a bit strange, doesn't it? He shrugged casually. Not at all. Sometimes it's easier to talk to someone you don't know. You can say things you might not say otherwise. Anna hesitated. She had no intention of unloading her heart on a complete stranger, especially after everything that had happened with Jason. But there was something about this man, something kind and approachable in his demeanor, that made her feel like maybe, just maybe, it wouldn't hurt to talk. Maybe you're right, she said finally, her voice quieter now. I've had a pretty tough time lately. He smiled, and for some reason, Anna found herself drawn to him. You don't have to tell me all the details if you don't want to, but if it helps, I'm a good listener. Anna looked at him for a long moment, then nodded slowly. I guess I could use someone to listen. Without a word, he motioned toward the nearby park bench, a few feet away, as if to say, shall we? They walked to the bench in comfortable silence. As they sat down, Anna felt a strange mixture of vulnerability and relief. She had no idea why she was doing this, why she was so willing to talk to this stranger, but there was something calming about the moment, like the world had momentarily paused, just for her. So, what's been going on? The man asked, his tone light but sincere. If you don't mind sharing, of course. Anna swallowed hard, taking a deep breath as she found herself searching for the right words. It was as though a dam had been slowly cracking open, and she was ready to let some of the water flow. I broke up with someone. Or more accurately, he broke up with me. It's a lot more complicated than that, but... Anna trailed off, feeling the tightness in her chest again. I didn't see it coming. It's like everything we had just disappeared overnight. The man's expression softened, and he nodded in understanding. I'm sorry to hear that. Breakups are tough, especially when you didn't expect them. It's like all the plans, all the memories, and all the dreams you had with someone just come crashing down. It feels like a part of you is missing. Anna blinked back a tear, surprised at how well he understood. It was as if he had been through something similar himself, and for a moment, she didn't feel so alone. I thought I knew him, Anna continued, her voice cracking. I thought we were building something real, something that could last. But now, I don't know what to believe anymore. The man's eyes softened with compassion. It's okay to feel lost. It's part of the process, and it's not easy. But what I've learned is that sometimes we have to let go in order to make room for something new. Not necessarily a relationship, but maybe new experiences, new lessons. You're not defined by what you lost. You're defined by how you choose to move forward. Anna looked at him, the weight of his words sinking in. She hadn't thought about it that way before. She had been so focused on what she had lost, she hadn't considered what she could gain. The man gave her a warm smile. It won't happen overnight. But one day, you'll look back and realize you've come out stronger than before. And when that happens, you'll be proud of yourself. Anna let out a shaky breath, a small, almost imperceptible smile forming on her lips. Thank you, she said, her voice soft with gratitude. I didn't expect this. I wasn't expecting to talk about all of this, especially with someone I just met. He chuckled lightly, his eyes glinting with a sense of quiet amusement. You'd be surprised how much comfort a stranger can bring. Sometimes the hardest part is just letting yourself be heard. Anna looked at him again, this time with a deeper appreciation. I'm Anna, by the way, she said, finally feeling a sense of normalcy in the conversation. Nice to meet you, Anna, he said with a smile. I'm Liam. And just like that, she had shared a piece of her heart with someone who wasn't a part of her past. And for the first time in a long time, Anna felt the tiniest spark of hope. Chapter 5. A new beginning. Anna and Liam sat in comfortable silence for a few moments, both lost in their own thoughts. The sun had dipped below the horizon now, casting the world around them in shades of deep purple and soft pink. The sounds of the city hummed in the background, but for Anna, It felt like the world had momentarily slowed down. It was just her and Liam, and for some reason, that felt like a small piece of peace amidst all the chaos inside her. "I haven't had a conversation like this in a long time," Anna said, breaking the silence. Her voice was softer now, more reflective. "I didn't realize how much I needed to talk until you started listening." Liam gave her a kind smile. "Sometimes all it takes is someone to really listen. You'd be surprised how healing it can be." Anna nodded, her eyes scanning the street in front of them, but her mind was still focused on the conversation they were having. She didn't know what had come over her, why she had suddenly opened up so much to a complete stranger. But somehow, she didn't feel uncomfortable with him. He had a way of making her feel seen, understood, like her feelings were valid without being judged. "It's just hard, you know. Losing someone you thought you would be with forever," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "It's like everything you thought you knew about love suddenly falls apart. I feel so lost right now." Liam's expression softened, and he leaned back slightly against the bench, his gaze turning inward as though he was recalling something personal. "I get it," he said quietly. "I've been there. Not exactly the same situation, but love is a tricky thing. You think you know what it is, but sometimes it just isn't enough to hold things together. And that's hard to accept." Anna felt a twinge of gratitude toward him for being so open, for not offering hollow words of comfort, but instead speaking to her from a place of understanding. She took a deep breath, letting the cool air fill her lungs as she tried to steady herself. The tears that had been threatening to fall slowly retreated, but the ache in her chest didn't go away. "I just don't know how to move on. Keep thinking about him, about what we had, and wondering if it's my fault, if I missed something, if I should have done something different." Liam turned his head to face her, his gaze steady but gentle. "It's natural to question yourself. We all do that after something ends. But the truth is, we can't always control how someone else feels or how they choose to act. You did the best you could. Sometimes people change. Sometimes things just don't work out, no matter how much we wish they would." Anna's lips pressed together as she nodded, feeling the weight of his words seep deep into her soul. She wanted to believe that, to truly accept it, but a part of her still clung to the hope that there was something left to fix. "I know," she said quietly, "but I don't want to let go of what we had." Liam gave her a thoughtful look, his voice soft but firm. "Letting go doesn't mean you forget about it, Anna. Doesn't mean you stop caring. It just means you start making room for something new. Something better, something healthier for you. You deserve that." Anna felt a slow, hesitant smile tug at her lips as she absorbed his words. She wasn't sure what it meant yet, but she could feel a shift inside her, a faint sense of relief, a possibility that perhaps, just maybe, moving forward wasn't impossible. Maybe it didn't have to mean leaving everything behind. Maybe it was about learning to carry the past with grace and embracing the future with open arms. "Thank you," she said quietly, her eyes meeting his once more. "I don't think I would have said all of that if I hadn't met you tonight." Liam's smile deepened, and there was a warmth in his eyes that made Anna feel like maybe, just maybe, things were going to be okay after all. "I'm glad I could be here for you, Anna. We all need someone to talk to sometimes, especially when things get heavy." She leaned back against the bench, looking up at the sky above them, watching as the stars began to appear one by one, dotting the velvet night like diamonds scattered across a black canvas. "I never thought a conversation with a stranger would help me this much," she said, almost to herself. Liam chuckled softly. "Sometimes the best connections happen when you least expect them." Anna looked at him again, something new stirring inside her. She had spent so much time focusing on the past that she had forgotten how important it was to be present in the moment. And right now, in this moment, she felt something that she hadn't felt in days. Peace. "I think I needed this," she said, her voice calm, her mind clearer than it had been in a long time. "I needed someone to remind me that I don't have to carry this alone. That I can heal, even if it takes time." Liam nodded, his expression thoughtful. "Healing is a process. It's not a race. And it doesn't mean you forget. It just means you're learning how to move forward even with the pain. There's no timeline for it. Anna smiled, a genuine smile this time. The darkness that had been suffocating her seemed just a little less heavy now. It was as though she had taken the first step toward letting go, toward accepting that things didn't always work out the way we wanted them to. As the evening wore on, the conversation shifted to lighter topics. They talked about books, about music, about their favorite places in the city. It was easy, natural, as though they had known each other far longer than the hour they had spent together. Anna found herself laughing more than she had in days, her heart feeling lighter with every passing minute. Eventually, the night grew late, and the park began to empty. The cold began to settle in, and Anna realized she should probably head home. But she didn't want to leave. She didn't want the night to end. "Well, I guess I should be heading home," Anna said, standing up from the bench, feeling the pull of reality settling back in. Liam stood up as well, his eyes soft with a kind of quiet understanding. "I understand, but I'm glad we met tonight. It was good to talk." Anna smiled, her heart feeling lighter than it had in days. "Yeah, me too." It was unexpectedly comforting. Liam nodded, taking a step back. "Take care of yourself, Anna. And remember, healing comes in waves. It's okay to take your time." As she began to walk away, Anna turned back to look at him one last time, a sense of calm filling her chest. She didn't know what the future held, but for the first time in weeks, she felt the faintest flicker of hope. Chapter 6. A New Light. The days that followed Anna's unexpected conversation with Liam felt both surreal and grounding. There was a newfound lightness in her steps, as if the weight that had been pressing down on her chest had slightly lifted. Her mind was no longer consumed with replaying every moment of her relationship with Jason, though memories still lingered at the edges of her thoughts. It was as if Liam's words had given her permission to let herself heal, to take things one day at a time instead of drowning in the past. Anna's routine hadn't changed drastically. She still worked long hours at the small marketing firm she had joined right after graduating from college. But somehow she felt more present. Instead of letting the work pile up and overwhelm her, she tackled it with a clarity she hadn't felt in months. Even her colleagues, who had noticed her more withdrawn behavior after the breakup, commented on how she seemed brighter, lighter, more engaged. She would smile and shrug it off, but deep down, she knew that it wasn't just her work that was improving. It was her heart. A week after meeting Liam, she found herself thinking about him more often than she cared to admit. It wasn't like her to think about someone she barely knew, but something about him had stuck with her. His calm presence, his genuine empathy, and the way he had simply listened without judgment. It all resonated with her more than she expected. She hadn't expected to find comfort in a stranger, especially one who wasn't a part of her past. But the truth was, Liam had brought a spark of peace to her that she hadn't realized she needed. One Saturday afternoon, she was walking through the farmer's market near her apartment, lost in thought, when she saw him. It was a brief moment. She caught a glimpse of him at a distance, leaning over a stall of fresh apples, talking to the vendor. For a second, her heart skipped a beat, but she immediately second-guessed herself. She hadn't heard from him since that night, and part of her was unsure whether she should even approach him. After all, they had only shared a single conversation. But before she could turn away, he looked up. His eyes met hers across the market, and a slow smile spread across his face. It was the kind of smile that reached his eyes, warm and inviting, as though he were genuinely pleased to see her again. Anna's hesitation faded, replaced by a rush of relief that felt a little too familiar, and she found herself walking toward him before she even realized it. "Anna," he said, his voice a little surprised but clearly happy. "I didn't expect to run into you here." Anna smiled, her heart inexplicably fluttering at the sound of her name on his lips. "I guess the universe has a funny way of bringing people together again." Liam chuckled softly. "It does seem that way. Are you shopping for something specific?" "Just browsing," Anna replied, her eyes glancing over the produce on the nearby stall. "I come here a lot on Saturdays. It's a good way to get out of the apartment." Same here, he said with a nod. It's a nice way to spend the morning. Good for clearing your head too. Anna couldn't help but laugh a little at the irony of it. You know, I used to come here with my ex. We'd pick out fruit, try new things. But I haven't been back since. She paused, feeling the shadow of the past threaten to creep in again. She could feel it in the way her chest tightened. Since things ended. Liam didn't say anything right away. Instead, he gave her a thoughtful look, one that felt like he was letting her set the pace of the conversation. Anna appreciated that. She wasn't ready to dive into everything again. Not yet. Well, Liam said after a moment, I think it's great that you're here. You're taking steps, even if you don't realize it. Every little thing counts. Anna couldn't help but smile at his words. She hadn't expected him to offer reassurance, but somehow it felt comforting in ways she hadn't anticipated. Maybe it was because he didn't push. He simply offered his perspective, giving her the space to figure things out on her own. I guess so, Anna said quietly. And you? Liam shrugged, his gaze briefly drifting toward the apple stall before meeting her eyes again. I've been doing a lot of thinking too. And honestly, running into you like this, it's not something I expected, but it feels right. Anna felt a surge of warmth at his words. Was it possible that he, too, had been thinking about her? About their conversation that night? Right, huh? She teased lightly, trying to keep the growing sense of hope at bay. She didn't want to rush anything, but she couldn't deny the way her heart sped up at the thought of him being here, of the two of them standing together like this, talking about things they never expected to share. Yeah, Liam said, a slight grin tugging at his lips. You seem like someone I wouldn't mind getting to know more. Her breath caught in her throat at his words, and she was suddenly acutely aware of how close they were standing to each other, the way the air between them felt charged. She hadn't expected things to unfold this way. She wasn't sure she was ready for anything, let alone something more. But in this moment, with Liam standing there, looking at her with a warmth in his eyes, she felt like maybe it was time to let go of the past and embrace what was in front of her. Maybe it wasn't so much about forgetting as it was about moving forward. Well, she said, feeling a playful grin stretch across her lips. I think that sounds like a good idea. But I'm not making any promises. Liam's smile widened and he chuckled, his eyes sparkling with an unmistakable sense of intrigue. I wouldn't want you to. I think we can take it slow, get to know each other over time. They both stood there for a moment, the bustling market around them fading into the background as they shared a quiet, unspoken understanding. Anna felt something shift within her. There was no pressure, no expectations. Just two people standing in the middle of life's mess, finding comfort in the simple act of connection. As they exchanged numbers and made plans to meet up for coffee the next weekend, Anna felt an unfamiliar sense of hope blossoming inside her. She didn't know what the future held, but she was starting to believe that she had the strength to face it, one step at a time. Chapter 7. The Unspoken Connection. Over the next few days, Anna found herself reflecting more on the brief but meaningful encounter with Liam. She replayed their conversation in her mind, trying to make sense of the feelings that had surfaced, feelings she hadn't even realized were buried so deeply inside her. Her thoughts often drifted to him as she worked, as she sat in her apartment, or even as she walked through the city streets, and every time, her heart fluttered with the same anticipation she hadn't felt in a long time. She had to admit it, there was something about Liam. Something more than just the easy conversation they'd had, more than the comfort of sharing their thoughts. It was the way he made her feel heard, the way his presence seemed to lift the weight from her shoulders without even trying. She hadn't felt this light in so long. It was as if, for the first time, she wasn't alone with her heartache. The night before their scheduled coffee meetup, Anna stood in front of her mirror, scrutinizing her reflection with an intensity she hadn't expected. Was she doing the right thing? Should she even be opening herself up to the possibility of something new when she was still so raw from her past? She hadn't been in a relationship for months, and here she was, contemplating whether or not she was ready to begin something with someone else. She shook her head, letting out a frustrated breath. You're overthinking this, she told herself softly, but there was a sense of unease that lingered in the pit of her stomach. Still, she forced herself to smile, remembering what Liam had said. Taking it slow was okay. They weren't rushing anything. The next morning, Anna arrived at the small, cozy cafe they'd agreed to meet at. The smell of freshly brewed coffee and the soft hum of casual chatter filled the air as she walked through the door, scanning the tables for Liam. It didn't take long for her eyes to find him, sitting in the corner near the window, looking calm and composed as he glanced at his phone. His dark hair was tousled just enough to look effortless, and his easy smile lit up his face when he saw her. "Anna," he greeted, standing up as she approached. His voice filled with warmth and a hint of excitement. "Hey, Liam," she replied with a smile, her nervousness quickly dissolving as she settled into the chair across from him. "I'm glad we could finally meet up." He chuckled softly, his eyes gleaming with that same genuine warmth. "Me too. I've been looking forward to this. How was your week?" Anna sat back, feeling more at ease as the conversation flowed between them effortlessly. They talked about everything and nothing, about their jobs, their favorite movies, and the small things that made their days more interesting. It was easy to laugh with him, to connect in a way that felt both comfortable and exhilarating. As they sipped their coffees, Anna couldn't help but notice how easy it was to let her guard down around him, how natural the conversation felt, like they had known each other far longer than they actually had. At some point, Liam leaned forward slightly, his expression more thoughtful. "So, how've you been, really? I mean, you've been through a lot lately, right?" Anna felt a small flutter of vulnerability at his question. It wasn't that she hadn't been asked this before, but the way Liam asked with such sincerity and care made her feel like he truly wanted to understand, not just hear a casual "I'm fine." She took a deep breath, surprised at how easy it was to be honest with him. "I've been better, honestly. It's been hard trying to move on after everything that happened. But I think I'm starting to understand that it's okay to feel what I'm feeling, you know? I don't have to rush through the process. I'm just trying to take it one step at a time." Liam nodded, his gaze soft and compassionate. "That's all you can do. Moving on isn't something that happens overnight. But you're doing it. You're here and you're opening up, even if it's just a little." Anna smiled, feeling the warmth of his words wash over her. "Thanks, Liam. I didn't realize how much I needed someone to say that." There was a brief silence as they both shared a quiet moment, and Anna realized that she wasn't just talking to Liam as a distraction. She was talking to him because she genuinely wanted to. She wanted him to understand her, and that thought made her heart race a little. Liam broke the silence, his voice thoughtful. "You know, I've been thinking a lot about that night we met in the park. And I've realized something. I think I was at a point in my life where I needed someone to listen to. It wasn't just about being there for you, Anna. It was about being able to open up to someone who wouldn't judge, who wouldn't expect anything." Anna raised an eyebrow, slightly intrigued. "You've had your own share of struggles, haven't you?" He hesitated for a moment, his eyes flickering with something distant, almost like a shadow crossing his face. But then he smiled again, that same warm, inviting smile. "Yeah, but that's a conversation for another time." His tone was light, but there was a depth to his words that Anna couldn't ignore. She nodded, respecting his boundaries. "Okay. Whenever you're ready to share, I'll listen." They spent the rest of the afternoon together, talking, laughing, and enjoying each other's company. By the time they stood up to leave, Anna felt lighter, as if a weight had been lifted from her shoulders. It wasn't just because of what they'd talked about, it was the connection they had built in such a short amount of time. She wasn't sure what it meant yet, but she knew that she wanted to see where it could lead. As they walked out of the cafe and onto the busy sidewalk, Anna found herself smiling more than she had in weeks. For the first time in a long time, she felt like the world was full of possibilities. And Liam, well, he was right there beside her, sharing the moment with her. His presence a steady and comforting force in the midst of her new beginning. Chapter 8. Moving forward together. As the weeks passed, Anna found herself caught in a delicate balance between her past and the future that was slowly unfolding before her. Her time with Liam became a soothing balm to the emotional wounds she hadn't even realized were still raw. Their meetings became the highlight of her days, whether it was a spontaneous coffee date, a walk through the park, or simply sitting in a quiet corner of a bookstore, flipping through novels while occasionally stealing glances at one another. There was an unspoken comfort between them, a connection that seemed to deepen with each passing moment. Anna had been hesitant at first to dive into something with Liam, still haunted by the remnants of her past relationship. She couldn't shake the doubts that crept into her mind. Was she truly ready to move on? Was she doing the right thing by opening her heart to someone new, even if just a little at a time? But with Liam, those doubts seemed to fade away, leaving room for something different, something hopeful. He was patient, gentle with her hesitations, and never pushed her for more than she was ready to give. One afternoon, as they sat on the edge of the riverbank, watching the water flow gently by, Anna realized just how far she had come in the short time since meeting Liam. She had let go of the grip her past had on her, at least for now. She didn't have all the answers, and maybe she wasn't ready to label whatever was blossoming between them, but she had come to understand something vital. Healing wasn't about moving on as quickly as possible. It was about taking the time to feel, to understand, and to let yourself grow, even if that meant taking small steps. "I'm glad we came out here today," Anna said, her voice soft but filled with contentment. The breeze was gentle, and the world around them felt peaceful. The sun was beginning to set, casting golden light across the river, and everything seemed to slow down in those precious moments. "Me too," Liam replied, turning to her with a soft smile. "It's nice to get out of the city sometimes. Just to be." Anna smiled back, her eyes tracing the line of the horizon. There was a sense of peace in this moment that felt different from the chaos she had been living in for so long. It wasn't about forgetting her past, but about finding something to look forward to in the present. Liam had become an important part of that. "You know," Liam continued, his voice growing a bit more serious, "I've been thinking a lot about us, about how quickly things have developed. I don't want to rush anything. I just want to take it slow, let things unfold naturally." Anna turned toward him, her heart fluttering a little at the sincerity in his eyes. "I feel the same way. I'm not in any rush. I think I needed to take my time, and now I'm ready to see where this could go, as long as we're both on the same page." Liam nodded, his gaze holding hers with an intensity that made Anna's heart race. "I'm glad we're on the same page. I don't know what the future holds, Anna, but I'd like to explore that future with you, one step at a time." His words made her feel something she hadn't allowed herself to feel in so long: hope. It was as if everything was slowly starting to fall into place, like she was moving forward without looking over her shoulder, without constantly wondering if she was doing the right thing. For the first time, Anna allowed herself to think about the possibility of a future with Liam, one that wasn't overshadowed by heartbreak, but instead filled with new beginnings and new dreams. Over the next few weeks, their bond grew stronger. They continued to see each other regularly, always enjoying simple, quiet moments that somehow spoke louder than words ever could. They spent their weekends exploring the city, enjoying each other's company at new cafes, or watching movies on lazy afternoons. There was no pressure, no expectations, just two people enjoying life in each other's presence. But, as is often the case when two people begin to grow closer, the inevitable moment arrived. The conversation they both knew was coming but neither had quite prepared for. It was another evening at the riverbank. The sun had just dipped below the horizon, and the city lights were starting to twinkle in the distance. They sat side by side, both lost in the gentle lull of the evening, when Liam suddenly turned toward her, his voice low but steady. "Anna," he began, his hand brushing against hers. "There's something I need to tell you. I've been holding on to this for a while now, and I think it's time I'm honest with you." Anna's heart skipped a beat. The way he said it, the seriousness in his tone, made her stomach twist in knots. She turned to him fully, her eyes searching his face for any clue about what was coming. "What is it, Liam? You can tell me anything." Liam took a deep breath, his expression soft but tinged with a vulnerability that Anna hadn't seen before. I've been carrying some baggage from my past, just like you. I didn't want to bring it up too soon, but I feel like I owe it to you to be honest about who I am. It's not something I'm proud of, but it's a part of me." Anna's heart softened at the raw honesty in his words. "You don't have to be perfect, Liam. You don't have to have everything figured out." He smiled faintly, his eyes filled with a mix of relief and uncertainty. "I know, but it's something that's been weighing on me. My last relationship ended abruptly, too. I didn't handle it well. I shut down, closed myself off from people, from everything. And it took me a long time to even consider being open with anyone again. I just needed you to know that I'm still working through that." Anna nodded slowly, processing his words. She had suspected there was more to Liam's quiet nature, more to his gentleness, but hearing him say it out loud made her realize just how similar their journeys had been. They were both in the process of healing, still learning how to trust, how to love again without fear of repeating the mistakes of the past. "I get it, Liam," Anna said softly, reaching out to take his hand in hers. "We're both figuring things out. And that's okay. I don't expect perfection from you. I just want to see where this can go. Together." Liam's eyes softened, his fingers gently squeezing hers. "Together," he echoed, a warmth spreading through his chest. And in that moment, Anna felt a quiet, unspoken promise pass between them. They weren't rushing. They weren't looking for some perfect love story. But they were ready to walk forward, side by side, with open hearts. The world around them was still, the river flowing gently, the city lights twinkling in the distance. And for the first time in a long time, Anna felt like she was exactly where she was supposed to be. Chapter 9. The Depths of Vulnerability. The weeks that followed their heartfelt conversation by the riverbank were marked by a deeper sense of intimacy between Anna and Liam. They no longer felt the need to mask their true selves. The walls they had each built over the years slowly began to crumble. As they spent more time together, they shared their pasts, their regrets, their moments of failure, and even their dreams, however fragile or uncertain they seemed. There was an openness between them now, one that felt raw and real. It was as if they were both learning to trust again, one small revelation at a time. Anna found herself growing more comfortable with Liam's quiet strength. He didn't try to fix her, didn't try to rush her healing. He simply listened, patiently and without expectation. She had always been a fixer, someone who tried to solve every problem, to make everything right. But with Liam, she realized that sometimes it wasn't about fixing things, it was about sitting with the discomfort, allowing each other to process the emotions that came with healing. One Saturday, they took a trip out of the city, driving through the countryside with no particular destination in mind. The air was crisp, and the fields were lush with the green of spring, dotted with wildflowers that swayed gently in the wind. It felt like a moment out of time, a rare pause in their busy lives to simply be. The long drive gave them the space to talk about everything and nothing, to share their hopes for the future and their fears about the unknowns that lay ahead. They stopped at a small diner tucked away on the side of the road, a cozy old-fashioned place with checkered floors and the smell of fresh pies wafting from the kitchen. It was the kind of place that felt stuck in time, and Anna loved it. As they sat across from each other, sipping coffee and sharing a slice of warm apple pie, Anna couldn't help but feel a sense of calm wash over her. There was something about this moment, this simple, everyday moment, that felt extraordinary. Liam was here, sitting across from her, and she wasn't thinking about her past, or her mistakes, or the heartbreak she had once carried. She was just present, enjoying the warmth of his company. "I've been thinking," Anna said softly, her eyes flickering to the pie before her. "About us. About everything we've shared so far." Liam raised an eyebrow, looking up from his coffee. "What about it?" She hesitated for a moment, unsure of how to put her thoughts into words. I think I'm starting to realize how much I've been holding back. I've been so afraid of getting hurt again, afraid of trusting someone completely. But with you it feels different. You don't pressure me. You don't expect anything from me. You just let me be." Liam leaned forward slightly, his expression open and sincere. "I'm not trying to rush anything, Anna. I want you to feel safe with me, to take things at your own pace. And I want you to know that no matter what happens, I'm not going anywhere. I care about you and I'm here." His words, simple and direct, settled in Anna's chest like a bomb. She had been so afraid of being hurt again, so afraid that opening herself up to someone would lead her back to the same place of heartbreak. But with Liam, she realized that she didn't have to be afraid. He was giving her space, time, and understanding. He was showing her that love didn't have to be painful. It didn't have to be something that dragged her into darkness. Could be light, steady, and kind. Her heart swelled with something she hadn't allowed herself to feel in years. Trust. "I'm starting to trust you too," Anna confessed, her voice soft but sure. "And it's not easy. It's not something I can just turn on. But you're making it easier. I don't know what the future holds, but I'm willing to see where this goes. With you." Liam smiled, his eyes full of warmth, and he reached across the table to take her hand gently in his. "We'll figure it out together, step by step." The sincerity in his voice, the way he looked at her like she mattered, like she was enough, made her heart race in a way that was both terrifying and beautiful. For the first time in a long while, Anna allowed herself to believe that love wasn't just something that hurt, it could be something that healed. The afternoon passed in a quiet haze, the conversation flowing easily between them, each moment shared feeling like a small treasure. By the time they returned to the city, Anna felt a deeper connection to Liam than she ever expected. She wasn't sure if it was love yet, but she could feel something growing. A bond, a trust, a tenderness that felt so right it was impossible to ignore. The next week, things began to shift in a way that neither of them had anticipated. It started with small moments, quiet phone calls after work, texts that seemed to come at just the right time, words of encouragement when one of them had a tough day. But then it grew. They began spending more nights together, staying in to cook dinner or watching movies, just enjoying each other's presence. It was effortless. But Anna wasn't blind to the fact that the closer they got, the more vulnerable she felt. Each passing day brought her closer to a moment she wasn't sure she was ready for, the moment when she would have to confront what she truly felt about Liam. She knew that if she let this connection continue to grow, she would have to give more of herself, let him in more completely. And that terrified her. One night, as they sat on the couch in her apartment, sharing a bottle of wine and talking about everything they loved and hated, Anna felt the familiar tug of doubt creep into her mind. She couldn't shake the fear that she was rushing into something. She wasn't ready to be everything someone else needed, and yet Liam made her feel like maybe, just maybe, she could. "Liam," she began, her voice tentative, "do you ever get scared? About letting someone in, about trusting them completely?" Liam looked at her, his gaze soft but piercing. "All the time," he said without hesitation. "But sometimes you have to trust someone to let them see the real you. Otherwise, what's the point? Life's too short to hold everything back." Anna felt her heart skip a beat. She wasn't alone in this fear, wasn't the only one carrying the weight of uncertainty. "I think I'm afraid of giving too much of myself and ending up with nothing," she admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. Liam squeezed her hand, his touch grounding her. "I won't hurt you, Anna. I know you've been hurt before, but I'm not him. I won't do that." Anna looked into his eyes, seeing the depth of sincerity in them. And for the first time in a long time, she allowed herself to believe him. Chapter 10. A New Beginning. The next few days were a blur of new experiences, shared moments, and a growing understanding between Anna and Liam. Their bond had deepened into something more than they had ever expected, more than either had been prepared for. It was the kind of connection that felt like both a comfort and a challenge, a love that made them better versions of themselves simply by being together. As they spent more time together, Anna realized that what they shared was far more than just a relationship. It was a partnership, a mutual understanding, a safe place where they could both be vulnerable, imperfect, and still be accepted. There were no demands, no expectations, just the joy of being in each other's company, of sharing moments that made life feel worthwhile. Yet, as with all relationships, there were moments of uncertainty. Anna still occasionally wondered if she was rushing into things, If perhaps they were both blinded by the novelty of something new. But every time those doubts crept in, she reminded herself of the words Liam had spoken to her. Life's too short to hold everything back. And she knew, deep down, that she couldn't keep holding herself back from feeling, from loving. One chilly evening in early autumn, they went for a walk through the city. The streets were quieter than usual, the crisp air bringing a refreshing sharpness to the night. They strolled hand in hand, talking about everything that had been on their minds. Liam's gentle laughter filled the silence between them, and Anna found herself smiling more freely than she had in months. She had almost forgotten what it felt like to be this content, this truly happy. At the end of the street, they paused in front of a small park, the lights of the city casting long shadows across the path. Anna took a deep breath, inhaling the cool night air, and turned to face Liam, her heart racing in her chest. "Liam," she began, her voice steady, yet full of the emotion she had been holding back. "I've been thinking a lot lately. About everything we've been through together, about how much we've shared, and how much you've helped me open up. I know I've been scared. I've been afraid of trusting again, of letting myself believe in something real. But with you, I feel like I'm finally starting to let go of the past. I feel like I'm finally learning how to love again. And it's not perfect, but it's real." Liam's eyes softened as he listened, his expression so filled with tenderness that Anna could feel her heart swell in her chest. He gently brushed a strand of hair behind her ear before speaking, his voice low but filled with conviction. "Anna, I've never been in a rush. I know what it's like to be scared of opening up. But you don't have to be scared with me. You don't have to worry about losing yourself or being hurt. I want to see you, all of you, and I'm here for it all. I'm here for whatever comes next." Tears welled up in Anna's eyes, though they weren't from sadness. They were from a deep, overwhelming sense of gratitude. Gratitude for Liam's patience, for his understanding, and most of all, for the love that had slowly blossomed between them. "I'm ready," she whispered, her voice shaky but sure. "I'm ready for whatever comes next, as long as it's with you." Liam smiled, his eyes full of warmth. Without another word, he stepped closer, wrapping his arms around her in a tender embrace. It felt like home, like she had finally found a place where she was safe, where her heart could be free without fear of rejection. As they stood there, in the soft embrace of each other, the world seemed to pause for just a moment. The hum of the city faded away, and it was just the two of them. Two souls intertwined, moving forward into a future neither could predict, but both were willing to face together. The next few months passed in much the same way, the connection between Anna and Liam continuing to grow with each passing day. They traveled together, explored new places, and spent time with one another in ways that only deepened their understanding and love. With each new step, they continued to shed the past and embrace the possibilities that lay ahead. They laughed more, held each other tighter, and found joy in the little moments that made life extraordinary. One evening, a year after their first meeting, Anna and Liam sat together on the same park bench by the river, watching the sun set in a burst of colors. They were quiet, content in each other's company, as the world around them seemed to slow down for a moment. "Do you remember that night we met?" Anna asked, her voice filled with fondness. "When we just talked and shared our stories?" Liam chuckled, looking over at her with a knowing smile. "Of course I do. It feels like a lifetime ago, but in some ways it feels like it was just yesterday. I feel like I've changed so much since then," Anna said, her voice reflective. "Not just because of you, but with you. I've learned that love isn't about perfection. It's about showing up, being real, and trusting that the other person will be there, flaws and all." Liam squeezed her hand, his smile softening. "I feel the same way. We've both come so far. And no matter where life takes us, I know that we'll always have this, what we've built together." Anna turned toward him, her heart full. "I don't know where we're headed, but I know that whatever happens, we'll be okay. Because we're in this together." And in that moment, she realized something profound. She was no longer afraid of what the future held. She had spent so much of her life worrying, wondering, and waiting for something to change. But now, with Liam by her side, she understood that life wasn't something you waited for. It was something you experienced, day by day, moment by moment, with the people who mattered most. And Liam mattered. He always would. As the sun set over the horizon, Anna and Liam sat in quiet harmony, their hearts finally in sync with each other's. The future was uncertain, yes, but with each other, they were ready to face whatever came next. Together,